America's heartland.
They both had kind of had a hard life, and together they were able to make each other stronger.
They were in love, and they did have future plans to get married.
But dreams are cut short by a horrific tragedy.
They had been shot multiple times. There was large amounts of blood.
The scene was a slaughterhouse.
The investigation will force police to revisit atrocities from the past.
Southern Illinois was one of the locations for the railroad killer. The community instantly was on alert.
The search for a suspect will lead detectives on a cross-country manhunt and reveal a darker truth, one culminating in the greatest act of betrayal from a friend in need.
She has nobody, and I really didn't have anybody. We just didn't want to lose each other, so we were going to do whatever it took.
Their plan was that they were going to be together in eternity.
These two young people's lives were thrown away for what? Nothing. 4 people basically died that day.
I feel so terrible for what happened. I know I should have stopped it. I should have done so many other things.
West Frankfort, Illinois is a quiet town where residents value their slower pace of life.
West Frankfort is a small, tight-knit, charming community, the sort of place you'd want to raise a family.
It used to be a big coal mining area. Most people know each other there.
But on October 19th, 2009, the town's laid-back and friendly veneer is shattered when West Frankfort 911 dispatchers receive a panicked call from a family member of 32-year-old local resident Terry Seebeck.
Terry's aunt called to report that she had spoken with Terry on the evening of the 18th and was unable to get in contact with her on the 19th. She had learned from Terry's employer that she did not show up for work that day.
Terry's aunt tells dispatchers that Terry's live-in girlfriend, 28-year-old Candace Majors, isn't responding to phone calls either.
Candace and Terry are living, and Terry's aunt grabs a spare key and heads to the house to see what was going on.
When she approached the house, she noticed there was blood on the storm door.
Then she notices that the doorknob is covered in blood, and she doesn't even walk in. She just calls 911.
When responding officers arrive on the scene, Terry's aunt gives them the key. When they try to enter the front door, the officers immediately encounter resistance.
As I pushed the door open, approximately 5-6 inches, toes came beneath the door, and you can see the blood on them. I was able to push the door open a little further to where I could squeeze my upper torso in and look, and I could see full body laid out perpendicular to the front door.
The scene was a slaughterhouse.
The officer observed a female body that obviously had been shot multiple times, some 4 to 5 times at least.
As police step into the room, they quickly realize there's a second female victim.
She was crumpled between the couch and the coffee table of the residence. There was large amounts of blood in the carpeting and on the coffee table itself.
Police identify the victims as Terry Seebeck and Candace Majors.
And we knew who resided there and who to expect to be inside of that house. Terry's aunt was on scene as we came out of the residence, and I think she saw it in my face when I came out.
As homicide detectives are called in, questions remain. Who killed this seemingly loving couple, and why? Since 2007, Terry Seebeck and Candace Majors had been supporting one another, both in life and in love. Both single mothers, the women had faced adversity growing up in small-town Illinois and had bonded over staying sober for nearly a decade.
Candace was a ball of life. She was a very bright, intelligent girl. Candace had a beautiful smile that lit up the room when she walked in. She had so many positive things going for her, but she got into meth really bad for a while. She would go out and start partying and go on binges for 3 or 4 days.
She would keep a job, lose a job, get another job, kind of just like dead-end jobs. Just really wasn't going anywhere in her life with it.
After losing custody of her 2 children, Candace knew she needed to make a change.
Trying to get her life together at that point, she was fighting to get custody back of these children that she had lost. She was just kind of down and out, needing help, and didn't really have anybody because her family has passed away or not around.
When Candace and Terry were introduced by mutual friends, they found a kindred spirit in one another.
I think they needed each other just because they both had issues with like past drugs, addictions, trauma. They both wanted to get on a better path and do good for their kids and get that love back that they lost.
They both had kind of had a hard life, and I think they found a mutual bond with each other. Together, they were able to make each other stronger.
They 100% like held each other accountable to always stay clean at that point. So at the beginning of 2007, they became really close, like right after that, and moved in together.
Terry started a job painting with her father. Candace had gotten herself enrolled in school to be a radiologist. She had had a job previously working in a nursing home, and she found that she loved that and that the residents of the home loved Candace. And that kind of inspired her to want to do something in some type of healthcare or to help people.
Candace and Terry had talked to me on many occasions about, how much in love they were, and they did have future plans to get married.
But now the couple has been found shot to death inside their home, and West Frankfort homicide detectives must determine what happened.
There is 2 women, one of which is laying face down right by the front door. Multiple gunshot wounds to both of the women's head and torso. Terry was shot through her left eye. There were shell casings all over the place.
We knew with the gun that we were looking for a .22 auto or semi-auto pistol because of the way that the brass was ejected into the residence of the house after firing.
Detectives are unable to find a gun in the house, ruling out the theory that it may have been a murder-suicide.
The blood on the front door, on the storm door, on the inside of the exterior door, when you see that, there was a struggle. Somebody was fighting to get in or get out. It wasn't a case of somebody sat down and committed suicide.
I've worked multiple homicide cases, but the injuries to Candace and Terry are the worst that I've ever seen.
Coming up past,
There had been a railroad killer that terrorized the area, jumping from rail car to rail car and murdering people.
and the search for the truth will expose conflict within the victim's home.
He did become kind of obsessed with her. It was, I will do anything for this person, for them to love me.
In West Frankfort, Illinois, police have discovered the bullet-riddled bodies of 32-year-old Terry Seebeck and her girlfriend, 28-year-old Candace Majors. As they process the crime scene, detectives try to figure out what the killer's motive might have been.
So began looking around to see if somebody might have gone in to rob them of valuables or drugs, if they would have had those in their possession. We had to cover every angle of who might have done this and why.
There were signs of robbery. Both of the victims' credit cards and IDs were missing.
According to Terry's aunt, Terry's gold Chevrolet Impala is also missing from the driveway.
At this point, our biggest piece of evidence that we're missing would be the vehicle. and it's either going to contain items of evidentiary value or contain the killers. And so that was our primary focus, was to find that vehicle. I instructed one of my investigators to start contacting gas stations, starting with the ones that would have been open in the late hour. If Terry's car was not full of gas and they were planning on fleeing the area and they needed fuel, let's check and see if they did.
While police track down surveillance footage, detectives dig deeper into the crime scene and find problems with the robbery theory.
The house didn't seem to be ransacked. It didn't look like people had really torn it completely apart, like they were searching for a specific item or items of value.
There was a stack of cash in the other room that was seemingly untouched, and there was some expensive jewelry that was left alone as well. There were no signs of forced entry into this home, which led investigators to believe that Candace and Terry let them in.
Detectives conclude that Candace and Terry likely knew the killer. The evidence of overkill suggests a deeply personal crime.
They've been shot multiple times, and we even found some live rounds, knowing that they must have had a jam with the gun and had to clear that and
pointing to who killed Candace and Terry or why. Detectives contact their families and break the devastating news.
I thought everything was going great. They both were working. The car they had bought was, a nice car. They were paying their bills. They were going to school. They were living the typical normal life. So it was very much a shock. I thought maybe drugs, because whenever you deal with certain people and drugs and things like that, things can go bad.
Anytime you're involved in illegal drug activity, you're going to have some shady connections. So I think that's where most people's minds went to first, is that maybe this was a drug gone wrong.
Maybe someone was getting revenge from something a long time ago, or it was like something they owed money to, and it was finally coming back to them. And unfortunately, that's the first thing I thought would happen.
Police immediately begin canvassing the couple's neighborhood in the hopes someone may have noticed suspicious activity.
We started with neighbors to see what they had seen in the area. We'd find out a little bit of information on Candace and Terry's residence.
While no one can offer any concrete information to support the drug theory, detectives do find a witness who offers a chilling tip.
One of the neighbors had seen a male subject in the area of the residence of Terry and Candace's house on the railroad tracks early in the morning on the 19th.
The tip sounds eerily familiar to report law enforcement had received several years earlier.
Southern Illinois was one of the locations for the railroad killer. The man who jumped from rail car to rail car and popped into communities and created heinous scenes like this. I remember being a child and being at home and being absolutely terrified that the railroad killer was going to come to my home.
Authorities know that the infamous railroad killer had died 3 years earlier by lethal injection. Police must now figure out, are they dealing with a serial killer copycat?
I think that might have been a concern for many people. Was this another railroad killer? The community instantly was on alert.
The citizens were wondering, are they still in our town?
The whole community was shaken, wondering who could have done something like this, because something like this couldn't be done by anyone in
Citizens listening to the scanner in town found a subject towards the south end of our city that matched that description. Officers were dispatched to the area.
When police locate the man, he appears confused by the claims. With no solid alibi, however, police bring him in for questioning. The man claims he was only out for a nightly stroll, and he had nothing to do with the murders of Candace Majors and Terry Seebeck.
It was just some guy that was on the tracks. He was ultimately ruled out as having any involvement in this crime.
As detectives continue digging into the couple's lives for clues, their friends offer police their first real lead.
They told us that Terry and Candace had a couple that they had allowed to stay with them because they had fallen on hard times and needed a place to stay, and they had been residing with them for a couple months.
Friends identify the couple as 19-year-old Afton Freeis and 29-year-old Michael Schallert.
We didn't find anything in the residence at the initial search, to state who they were, because their belongings were gone, which was concerning.
But friends reveal that Afton and Michael had moved out of Candace and Terry's house on October 18th, after conflict had developed between the two couples.
Afton and Michael Schallert had been accused of stealing from Terry Seebeck and Candace Majors, and then they were asked to leave.
As police put out an APB for Afton Freeis and Michael Schallert, a witness comes forward to report another crime.
We had a subject that came forward and contacted the police department to say that Mike and Afton had been at his residence on the evening of the 18th. They had left after he had gone to sleep, and when he awoke, he realized that a .22 pistol was missing from his house.
Detectives realize it's the same caliber of weapon that was used in the murders of Candace and Terry.
Then when we learned that the gun was missing from there, and Michael and Afton had been there the night before the murders, I wasn't wasting any more resources, looking anywhere else.
Coming up, police face a race against the clock to track down their suspects before it's too late.
The vehicle left the gas station, headed towards the interstate, so we were certain that they had fled our jurisdiction.
Less than 24 hours into their investigation, police in West Frankfort, Illinois are searching for 29-year-old Michael Schallert and 19-year-old Afton Freeis in connection with the murders of their friends and former roommates, Terry Seebeck and Candace Majors.
We had learned Afton's driver's license was issued out of the state of Wyoming, and Michael Schallert had ties out Colorado, Wyoming also, so we kind of suspected that that would be a familiar place for them that they would be fleeing to.
Detectives track down Michael's family in Cheyenne, Wyoming, but they say they haven't heard from him. When detectives ask the family about Michael's connection to Terry and Candace, they learn Michael had been close friends with Terry for years.
Friends had a hard time believing that Michael was capable of doing anything violent, especially to Terry and Candace.
Michael is a kind and caring person. He has always been the type to give, the shirt off his back for somebody else.
Michael Schallert is from a good family. He's the oldest of two children, born in 1979. His friends describe him as kind-hearted and compassionate and a good guy who just happens to fall in love really easily.
He had his first kid when he was 15 years old. That, in and of itself, kind of had a huge impact on the trajectory of his life. He was barely able to have a work permit, let alone have to raise a child.
Detectives learned that over the years, Michael had wandered state to state, searching for stability.
He was something of a drifter. Someone who could not hold down a job. Someone who was looking for someone to take care of him in an emotional sense.
When he landed in West Frankfort, Illinois, he had quickly struck up a friendship with Terry Seebeck, who offered him a place to stay.
She said she was trying to help get him back on his feet. They were together, every day, hanging out, doing all the normal stuff that, best friends do.
He seemed to be making a life, and he seemed to be doing really good. And then he came back to Cheyenne.
After returning home to Wyoming in 2008, Michael met 18-year-old Afton Freeis. Like Michael, Afton had been searching for a place to call home.
Afton Freeis grew up in the foster system. She was in and out of homes. She ran away multiple Victorian of her high school class. But unfortunately, after she graduated, she was unable to keep a steady job and was unable to keep a home.
Michael met Afton when she was homeless. She had been kind of going to bars and stuff.
Michael found out that she was homeless and couch surfing, and he immediately offers to take her in, and that's how the two start their romance.
Schallert was incredibly nurturing towards Afton Freeis. He displayed what appeared to be very sincere motives on his part.
He did become kind of obsessed, with Afton. It wasn't necessarily an obsession like a crazy obsession. It was, I will do anything for this person, for them to love me. When Michael asked me if him and Afton could stay at my house, I told him no. I had just had a kid, and he was not even a year old yet. I'm not going to allow some girl that I didn't even know to stay in my house.
An angered Michael decides to move to West Frankfort, where he had been happy and has a strong group of friends. One of those friends happens to be Terry Seebeck.
Terry welcomed her old friend and his new girlfriend into her and Candace Major's home.
They, took my brother in. He needed a place to stay, and that was pretty nice of them to do that.
But police learned that it wasn't long before tensions erupted between the two couples.
About a month after they had moved in, I spoke with Terry on the phone, and she just seemed really frustrated, saying some of their things had came up missing. Small articles. I think it was probably like some pieces of jewelry or money. It was just small things. She told me that no one else had been in the house.
Terry and Candace believe that this couple has began stealing items from them and that they were going to ask them to move out of their house.
Eventually, they packed up Afton and Michael's things and put them on the front porch and asked them to come pick them up.
I know how Candace is. She's hot-headed, and if she was angry because she pinpointed what they did, she would push them right out. That's just how she was. She would give you one chance and she was done with you. And I wouldn't blame her.
Less than 24 hours later, Candace and Terry were found murdered. Police know they need to track down Afton and Michael immediately. Less than 48 hours into their investigation, police get a tip that Terry's camera.
Gas station footage near the crime scene revealed the stolen vehicle pulling up to the pump near the interstate. And guess who happens to walk out? Michael Schallert to pump gas.
There was a person in the vehicle that remained in the front passenger seat of the vehicle. From her body style, it looked like it appeared to be a female.
While the blonde sitting in the passenger seat doesn't ever get out, she does match the description of Afton Freeis.
It's a valuable piece of information because the vehicle left the gas station. We could watch it as it left on the roadway headed towards the interstate, which is only like a block and a half from the interstate. So we were certain that they had fled our jurisdiction.
Detectives speak to gas station employees to see if they have any additional information on the couple.
The clerk remembered Schallert coming in the night before. They remember he was in a hurry, and he used a credit card that was in the name of Candace Majors, but actually signed his own name on the ticket.
Detectives subpoena records for the stolen credit cards, hoping to track the missing couple.
The police are able to watch Michael and Afton travel out west by the credit card transactions on one of the stolen victims' credit cards.
Sooner or later, they're going to not use the card, but as long as they're using it, that's great for us.
On October 21st, 2 days after the bodies of Candace and Terry were discovered, the credit card activity stops in Larimer County, Colorado. When detectives ask Michael's family if Michael has any connections there, they catch a break.
The marshals in Larimer County, Colorado, had learned that Michael Schallert had a friend who resided in a trailer park in Fort Collins, Colorado. A surveillance on that residence identified a Chevy Impala, which is the type of vehicle that Terry Seebeck owned. Now that we see that what we're pretty certain would be the vehicle in this trailer park, those departments establish a surveillance in there to make sure that Michael and Afton are at this residence. This is kind of a complicated surveillance because you're in a tight-knit community where the same people come and go daily, and they know who should be there and who shouldn't be.
The homes are in such close proximity to each other, it makes it really hard for police to go unseen.
Coming up, as authorities take their positions outside the trailer, they brace themselves for a standoff with two desperate killers willing to do anything to remain free.
This is a double homicide.
Authorities have tracked suspected killers Michael Schallert and Afton Freeis to Larimer County, Colorado. After staking out the trailer park, police visually identified their targets 2 days after Candace Majors and Terry Seebeck were discovered murdered.
The surveillance team was able to recognize Afton come out of the residence, go to Terry's vehicle along with Michael, and remove items from the vehicle and place them in a trash bag. Michael then took the trash bag over and placed it in a trash receptacle outside of the trash.
That's when the police orchestrate a takedown.
The SWAT team uses a stun grenade to temporarily disorient Michael and Afton.
They made their approach and took both of them into custody.
While Afton and Michael are transported to the local station for questioning, law enforcement conducts a search of the premises and Terry Seebeck's vehicle.
During the execution of the search warrant in the trash bag, they located bloody clothing that had been worn by Afton Freeis.
They also find the remaining stolen credit cards along with both Candace's and Terry's ID.
In the execution of the search warrant on the trailer, they found a black purse that was Afton's purse, and inside the purse they found a black Ruger 22 semi-auto pistol. This was the same weapon that had been reported stolen to our police department.
In the car, they find a handwritten poem by Afton, seemingly to describe the crime and their life on the run as criminals. The poem was titled Bullets and Wheat. They find two more handwritten letters from Afton that seem to be suicide notes.
Hoping for a confession, detectives decide to confront Afton first.
Afton, my name is Jeff Tharp. I'm the chief of police in West Frankfort, Illinois. This is Captain Mike Dent, West Frankfort Police Department.
I'll tell you everything. Just
Okay, so hang on a second.
can you at least just tell me how you guys found us so fast?
When detectives confront Afton about the murders, she immediately breaks down and explains Terry and Candace had been accusing her and Michael of theft.
They're like, well, we just kicked you out because we don't trust you anymore, and we
Told us that on the night of the 18th, they had been told by Terry and Candace that they were being kicked out of the house. They went to a friend's house, had some drinks, played cards, knew that this friend had a pistol in his house. The friend passed out. They stole the pistol from the house and the ammunition, and they left.
According to Afton, she and Michael walked the few miles back to Terry and Candace's house while they devised a plan to rob the women and flee. They quickly realized it wasn't that simple.
we didn't have any other choice.
Any other choice than what?
Doing that and getting a car and leaving.
To go in and killing them and getting what you could and taking their car. That was the only option that you guys
The only
left.
option we had.
Afton admits when they arrived, they convinced the women they wanted to make amends.
we asked her, can we come inside, to apologize, and we were sitting there, and Terry was sitting next to me on the couch.
Just the four of you in the house?
Yeah,
right now?
there's a couch right here, and Candace was sitting on this couch right here, and I was sitting next to Terry on this couch, and Michael was sitting on the chair. And they were telling us how we were stealing and stuff, and how they went through our room and found the CDs, and it was so trashed in there. Michael went in the room saying, well, I need to go see if there's anything else, and he came back out, and Candace was bitching. He's like, you know what, motherfucker, and he shot her. She went backwards, and then he shot Terry. She hit the coffee table.
Afton stated that she noticed Candace was at the door and was using her cell phone to call the sheriff's department. Afton said she grabbed a hold of Candace and drug her back into the residence, and Michael shot her some more.
Terry, she was moaning and groaning, and I told him to give me the gun, and I shot her in her left eye.
With both women now dead, they take the women's IDs, their credit cards, a small amount of cash, some cigarettes, and they hit the road.
But according to Afton, her and Michael's dreams to ride off into the sunset together quickly faded.
Afton says that Michael's been an emotional mess ever since the murders, and that the plan was to just commit suicide. That they just wanted to be together, whether that was in life or in the ground. From the moment she walks into the room, she has no remorse and takes no responsibility for what was done.
The reason why I did this is my life has been f***ed up, and just there's nothing for me to live with. I got no family, I got no friends, it's just Michael, and it's just...
With Afton's confession in tow, police sit down with Michael Schallert.
Michael's demeanor is very different from Afton's. He tells law enforcement that he never intended to kill anyone, that he just wanted to rob them.
I'm not the type of person to do anything like that. I've never hurt anybody in life. I just had nowhere to go.
How you doing? Fine, keep going. What happened?
We just walked in and she started blaming Afton for stealing some CDs. And me for a tank top shirt. And I just couldn't take it no more. And I had that gun. I just pulled the trigger. I don't even know how many times. And it got jammed. And Afton told me to load it. I reloaded it. And she shot a couple times.
Michael says he and Afton needed the money so they could be together, and that they had no other choice but to do what they did.
I didn't want to lose Afton, because that's all we had. She has nobody, and I really didn't have anybody. And we just didn't want to lose each other, so we were going to do whatever it took.
They felt like this was their best opportunity to start a new life together.
Following their confessions, Michael Schallert and Afton Freeis are both charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. News of their arrest stuns those who knew both couples.
I was sick. I was mad. I was... Every emotion you could have. Makes no sense. There was no reason for it.
I mean, it was surreal. It's something that, you see on TV. Like, you don't think that would ever happen in real life.
Both Michael and Afton plead not guilty, hoping a trial will save them from a possible death sentence.
At the time when they were charged in Illinois, the killing of 2 people made you eligible for the death sentence.
Knowing that the murders were possible death penalty, it was like the moment that I knew life wasn't going to be the same.
Coming up, as one narrative begins to shift, prosecutors question whether justice will be served.
She was trying to make it sound like she didn't want to go against his
prison interview.
This whole thing started because I fell in love with somebody. They didn't deserve it. They were my friend.
West Frankfort, Illinois, Michael Schallert and Afton Freeis are awaiting trial for the double murder of their friends and former roommates, Terry Seebeck and Candace Majors. Then, in 2011, just before their trials are set to begin, the unexpected happens.
As they awaited trial, the state of Illinois' governor had imposed a moratorium on capital punishment.
Governor Pat Quinn actually makes the death penalty illegal. With the threat of the death penalty off the table, Michael tells his attorney he wants to plead guilty and avoid the trial.
He decided he wanted to change his plea to guilty to the 2 counts of first-degree murder, and he did so.
Nobody knew that he was going to go in there and just plead guilty. But his reasoning for doing that was so that the victim's family didn't have to go through any more than what they had already been through.
So, I mean, he was showing remorse, at least, like I would think human beings would.
At the end of the day, Michael Schallert was sentenced to life in prison.
In July 2011, 2 years after the murders of Terry and Candace, Afton Freis's murder trial begins.
The prosecution painted Afton as a cold-hearted killer. The defense tries to lay the blame completely at the feet of Michael Schallert.
When Afton takes the stand to testify, she paints a much different picture than the one she had described in an interrogation room.
Afton says that she looked on in horror as Schallert killed her friends, and that she originally lied in her confession tape to protect the man that she loved.
Afton blamed everything on him.
She was trying to make it sound like she didn't want to go against what his wishes were.
She was very stoic, no sign of much emotion at all, even when she attempted to muster some up and really couldn't.
The jury ultimately sides with the prosecution.
Afton Freis was found guilty of both murders. She was also found guilty of armed robbery and home invasion, and she was sentenced to life in prison, plus...
I was relieved, but I was sad because these 2 young people's lives were thrown away for what? Nothing. 4 people basically died that day.
If I could, turn back time 11 years, I mean, maybe I would have allowed my brother to stay in my house. Maybe it wouldn't have happened.
I believe that if the 2 of them hadn't got together, that Candace and Terry would still be alive.
I would want to say I am disappointed that I have not got the chance to see what Candace might have become. I guess I would want to tell Afton and Michael that I don't understand what you did. You threw your life away, but I'm not going to let that dominate my life. I have to keep going and just cherish the memories I do have.
From his prison cell, Michael remembers Afton 10 years later, and how their all-consuming romance triggered a deadly betrayal among friends.
This whole thing started because I fell in love with somebody. It was like love at first sight. And every day I just got more and more obsessed with her. I mean, there's always going to be something in my heart for her. She was a big part of my life, and that was the most intense love that I ever had. I feel so terrible for what happened. I think about it every day. I accept all the responsibility for my part. They didn't deserve it. They were my friend.
They were young lovers and friends, searching for a place to fit in.
They were going to be on the adventure of heading to start a life together.
She was very excited about what the future was going to be for her.
But a terrifying crime would bring their adventures to an end.
She obviously wasn't killed right away. She was tortured.
In their search for answers, investigators must piece together a complicated puzzle of conflicting stories between two couples to determine who is telling the truth and who is leading the conspiracy.
He was a kind of a cult leader. He liked to control people through fear.
Stop him. As soon as he stops.
You knew there was more to the story. That's when the real torture started.
It just leaves you with an empty feeling. It's hard to comprehend.
Densely forested and tucked in a remote corner of northwestern California, the Trinity Alps Preserve is the second largest wilderness area in the state.
The Trinity Alps is a huge wilderness area between Redding and the Pacific coast. It's massive in size.
It's very dark out there, and if you go down the wrong road, there's trouble. There's a lot of people that actually live out there to kind of keep a distance from law enforcement, make their own rules.
It's a place where you can be by yourself and not be bothered.
On the morning of April 18th, 1998, Shasta County authorities receive a call about a derelict campsite.
There was one tent standing. You could see there had been another tent there, but it had been removed.
There was debris everywhere. There were empty liquor bottles. There was signs of possibly a struggle or something that had taken place.
There was dried blood all around, and that's when then I was notified to start a search warrant.
The whole investigative unit was called in, and the dog immediately went to the fire pit.
As the investigative unit begins clearing debris, they make a horrific discovery.
The police gently dug through the fire pit, and eventually they found a hand. And they discovered a partially burnt body buried underneath the campfire.
The victim was naked. She had a black plastic, like garbage bag, tied around her head. It definitely appeared that she'd been struck several times in the back of the head. She had bruising, all over her body. There were cuts on her arms.
Investigators immediately contact the coroner's office for assistance.
The coroner estimates the body had been there 10 to 15 days. It was in really good condition for investigative purposes. It was inside the fire pit covered by wood, so it was not disturbed by wildlife or any environmental elements.
While the body is removed for autopsy, authorities continue processing the scene for clues.
One of the pieces of evidence that we located in the campsite was a small purse, and inside the small purse was a driver's license identifying a person by the name of Laura Sinner, even though she matched the picture on the driver's license. We want to make 100% sure.
Detectives will have to wait for dental records to confirm their victim's identity. In the meantime, the driver's license is the only hint they have. Born on October 25th, 1977, Laura Sinner grew up on a dairy farm near Yakima, Washington, the youngest of 3 siblings.
Laura, as a young girl, she was fun. She was cute. She was always smiling and seemed like happy, even when her 2 big brothers were picking on her.
When Laura was 8, her parents divorced. Still, Laura always appreciated the value in family. As she got older, she yearned to help those who had none.
I remember Laura's high school days. She volunteered a lot with our mom.
My mom was very into religion and church and brought us up as a Christian family. It was a big part of our life.
Mom started doing foster care. She was working in some caregiving fields, and then when we had room, why not? We got this little boy named Joshua.
My sister really took a liking to Joshua, and that became a big part of her life. She enjoyed helping others, and that was kind of her Christian spirit. To help others, it was just her personality.
Following her freshman year of college, Laura spent the summer of 1997 volunteering at a Christian mission in Aberdeen, Washington. There, Laura would meet the love of her life.
There was a young man that had come through the food line, and she kind of noticed that he kept coming through, and this young man named Tim.
Tim Smith was from Redding, California. He had moved up to Washington State for a change in life when he ended up meeting Laura. Tim was so smitten by her that he started volunteering at the mission so he could get to know her better. They were quite happy with each other.
Laura definitely liked Tim. She always wanted to be around him.
So she went through the things that we all go through when we, meet our first love.
By the end of summer, however, the budding romance hit a rough patch.
He didn't have any money, was always begging for money from my sister. He just didn't seem to have any drive.
They ended up breaking up, and it broke Laura's heart.
Less than 2 months later, Laura suffered another devastating blow when her mother fell ill.
She went into the doctor for that and found out that she had leukemia, and it quickly progressed.
She went into the hospital October 8th and died on the 31st. So it was like a couple weeks of not knowing she was ill to she's gone. Mom was Laura's life. It devastated Laura. She kind of lost it. Where do I go? What direction do I go? It really threw her for a loop.
To ease the pain, Laura sought the comfort of her former flame, Tim Smith.
I think Laura was emailing him. She had reached out to him, and somehow he figured out how to get her to take him back to where his family was from, and that's where I found out that Redding, California was like his hometown.
And that's where she started developing this, well, maybe we could go to California or make a change in her life so that she could become a happier person. She saw this opportunity with Tim to try something different.
In March of 1998, Laura and Tim packed their belongings into Laura's car.
She said that they love each other. They're going to go down, meet his family, get married, start a life there. I mean, she was 20. That's kind of what 20-year-olds do.
But Laura's happy ever after would come to an untimely end. Only 1 month after she arrived in California, police believe they have found her body at a campsite in the Trinity Alps wilderness.
We did ultimately find family-sized large can of chili beans. It had hair, blood evidence, and it was dented.
Police suspect that this can was actually used as a weapon on the victim. And with the amount of force taken to make this kind of dent, you can only imagine the level of rage and anger that was behind it.
Coming up, as police dig deeper into their victim's life, her family leads them to someone with opportunity.
Knowing that he was her ex-boyfriend, he was the one that brought her to the area. He was certainly a person of interest.
But a tell-all confession shifts investigators' attention from one couple to refocus on two couples.
She came forward to tell investigators that she had information about Laura's death.
Let's hold on to it. If I have to, he's gonna kill him just like he did her.
1998, police have discovered the brutalized remains of a young woman at an abandoned campsite.
Dental records were requested, and when they received those dental records, we were positively able to identify the victim as Laura Center. As the autopsy was conducted, it was ultimately determined that the cause of death was a massive blunt force trauma. Also, the coroner's report stated that the blood alcohol level was 0.78. The legal limit for being under the influence of alcohol is 0.08. When a person gets to the area of 0.4 to 0.5, they are generally completely incapacitated. And anything beyond that, there's an extreme possibility of death, either through alcohol poisoning or just your body shutting down.
The coroner said that someone would have to be forced to drink that much alcohol because it's
shocking. She obviously wasn't killed right away. She was tortured.
We contacted Laura's father in Salem to advise him that we had located her body and that she was deceased.
Are you sure? Are you sure it's her? I mean, come on. She's too nice. Who would do this? I mean, she'd give you the shoes off her feet, the shirt off her back, her last dollar. Like, it's just not possible.
We were just devastated as a family. My father was crushed. It was hard for him to live with, hearing that happened to his daughter.
Laura's father tells investigators that he had been worried about his daughter ever since she moved to California with her boyfriend, Tim Smith, nearly 5 weeks earlier.
He was so concerned because he hadn't heard from his daughter from the time she left and moved to Redding that he contacted the Salem Police Department and reported her as a missing person. Shortly after that, he received a phone call from her.
Laura had called her father to inform him that Tim had actually broken up with her.
On March 27th, I emailed my sister and I said, I'm concerned. I know that Tim and you have broken up and I want to help you. And if there's something going on and you need help, let me know.
The offer was made by her father to give her money for gas so she could return to Salem. She declined those offers and said that she did want to stay in Redding.
Laura's father told investigators that the last he spoke to his daughter was on April 1st. And he hadn't heard from her since then, and he just assumed that she stayed in Redding and that she and Tim were just trying to work things out.
Knowing that Tim was her ex-boyfriend, he was the one that brought her to the area. He was certainly a person of interest.
Law enforcement locate Tim Smith in Redding and take him into custody.
We brought Tim in to major crimes and interviewed him.
When police eventually confront Tim and let him know that Laura had been murdered, he seems legitimately shocked. He insists he knows nothing of what happened to her and that the last time he had seen her was March 30th.
According to Tim, 2 weeks after arriving in California, he broke up with Laura following a series of arguments.
He described the relationship he and Laura had and how it changed after they got down to Redding.
They split up. Laura decided to stay, and she was staying at his father's house due to the fact that she actually became friends with Tim's family.
She met Tim's brother Paul, Tim's sister Lori, her boyfriend Eric Rubio. They all seemed to get along.
Lori and Laura had a fairly instant connection with each other, and Laura wanted Lori to be her maid of honor when she married Tim. Lori felt very close to Laura and once told her that she was like the sister that she had never had.
When Tim and Laura broke up, she really had nowhere to go. So she asked Paul and Lori if she could come and live with them. Tim decided he would just keep his distance and let Laura have her space.
She was excited about these friendships where she had been alone. She had very little in her life after her mother died.
When police asked Tim about the last time he spoke to Laura, he claims it's been nearly 3 weeks. He explains he doesn't spend much time with his younger siblings, 20-year-old Paul Jr. and 18-year-old Lori, because they didn't always see eye to eye.
It became very apparent this was a dysfunctional family.
Tim tells police that from a young age, he and his siblings had never had a real place to call home.
The kids spent most of their time in foster care, bouncing around from one place to another. They weren't always together.
It did appear that Tim had moved away, started a productive life, was moving forward. Paul wasn't able to do that. He was in the system, continually in the system, and really struggled to lead a productive life.
Even after he got out and became an adult, he continued this type of activity. He was a car thief, burglar, and was involved with that kind of way to support himself rather than get a real job.
His sister Lori had her own problems in foster care and ended up in juvenile hall a few times also. In late 1997, the family all reconnected and lived underneath Paul Sr.'s roof in Redding, California. The brothers hadn't seen their sister Lori in years. She was almost a stranger, but she reconnected, especially with Paul Jr.
Once they reunited, basically as adults, they became very close. They clung to each other.
Best friends, 19-year-old Eric Rubio. At the same time, Paul met a 14-year-old girl named Amy Stevens.
My understanding that Amy Stevens was a runaway, that she'd been in the foster care system, and she had ran away at this point, and that she was now hanging out with Paul Smith as, quote, a boyfriend.
Paul convinced her to run away from the foster home and move in with him, which she in fact did. She idolized him. He was everything to her.
Tim says he hasn't seen his siblings since he and Laura Sinner broke up 3 weeks earlier. Now that Laura has been found murdered, he suggests police should immediately find and question them about the last time they saw Laura.
When interviewing Tim, I really, truly felt he was a good guy. I felt he was actually very worried, and possibly some responsibility since he's the one that brought her down here. Obviously, you still have that thing in the back of your mind, there's a possibility, but he was very cooperative.
As detectives continue to gather information from Tim, they receive a surprise visit from Paul Jr.'s girlfriend, Amy Stevens.
I'd received a walk-in report of a juvenile who stated that she was hooked up with an adult and he was on a crime spree. She was scared.
Amy came forward to tell investigators that she had information about Laura's death.
In Redding, California, police are investigating the murder of Laura Sinner when 14-year-old Amy Stevens comes forward and claims she knows who killed her. When investigators sit down with Amy, she tells them she had recently met Laura through her 20-year-old boyfriend, Paul Smith, when Paul and his sister Lori offered Laura a place to stay.
There was 2 couples with Eric and Lori and Amy and Paul. She said Laura was kind of disruptive to the group. She was the 5th wheel.
She felt that there were times when Laura seemed to be flirting with Paul. It seemed like Paul would flirt back with her as well. And this agitated Amy.
Amy tells investigators that on April 7th, the group
Paul had invited Laura Sinner to join the two couples on the camping trip. Now, Amy admits that she was not happy about that at all. But they set up camp and they were having a good time hanging out. But later in the evening, Laura started flirting with Paul.
She said that Laura had kissed Paul, and she got very angry.
She actually ran up to Laura, punched her in the face. At that point, Laura was able to physically push Amy back, and the two of them fell down on the ground. And then Laura was on top of Amy.
She told police that then Paul stepped in.
Amy described that Paul had grabbed a can, hit Laura in the head.
Amy tells investigators she was terrified by what Paul did next.
She described that Paul had grabbed a dent puller.
Dent puller is a device used by body repair people to pull dents out of a car. It has a heavy end to it. And he beat her with that.
Eventually, Paul struck her to the point where Laura was no longer responsive.
According to Amy, she was angry when Laura tried to kiss her boyfriend, but she had never meant for her to die. Fearful of Paul, she had stayed quiet about the murder, but her conscience had weighed on her, and she decided she needed to come clean to police.
I truly felt sympathy for this young juvenile. She was scared. She just wanted to report this. She wanted something done to Paul Jr., and I thought her motives were pure for reporting it.
Amy confirms that Laura's ex-boyfriend Tim Smith was not present at the time of the murder, eliminating him as a person of interest. After telling her story, Amy puts investigators in touch with 18-year-old Lori Smith.
Lori went to speak with investigators knowing that Amy had done the same thing herself.
Just want to talk to you, your arrest or anything like that. And when we're done visiting, we'll be right back. Okay?
According to Lori, Laura Sinner had driven her, Eric Rubio, Paul Smith, and Amy Stevens to the Trinity Alps campsite on the afternoon of April 7th.
Paul was making us all of us drink alcohol. He was like playing a guilt trip on us. So, well, if you don't drink this, it's messed up, because I spent my money on you guys buying this alcohol for you. He made us all feel bad, so we all drank. Started flirting with him. She started grabbing his butt, hanging all over him, hugging him, giving him a kiss on the cheek. And Peter got mad and started yelling and screaming at her.
Lori then explained that ultimately Paul got angry about it.
He started beating up on Laura. He took her where we considered where he can make us watch her. Watch him beat her up. We was trying to last, like, stop him. He didn't stop. He kept beating her.
Smith said that she was not helping because Paul had threatened to kill them.
He tied her up with a rope. Put a rope around her neck, tied her legs, and tied her arms and threw her on a wrestling mat by the tent, and his arm sliced her wrist open. So to make it look like you tried to kill yourself. And he made us watch that.
Then he put a bag over her head and beat her more with the dent puller.
And when he took the dent puller and just started hitting her right here in the back of her neck, between 15 and 20 times, you can just hear her bones and her body crushed. And he was my fiance, Eric, off the barrier, and Eric's just sitting here like, I have to do it. I told him, don't do it. So I have to. He's going to kill me just like he did her.
After they left the campsite, Paul had told everyone involved that if they said anything, that he would kill them or have them killed. Lori really believed it. She was in absolute fear of Paul carrying this out, so she hadn't said anything.
Lori Smith's account of the murder ends the same way as Amy Stevens, but investigators notice some discrepancies between the two stories.
The biggest difference was that Amy admitted that she initiated the physical contact.
Laura Smith blamed everything on her brother, Paul Smith, and said that he was the one that injured and assaulted and then eventually murdered Laura Sinner.
The fact that their stories were that much different made us think we aren't even close to what really took place.
Detectives have to wonder, are Amy and Lori telling the truth about Paul? Or are the girls hiding their own motives for wanting Laura Sinner dead?
You knew there was more to the story.
They decided it was worth investigating Eric and Paul, who is pretty much a loose cannon and a violent person.
Coming up, in search of the truth is the crime's true mastermind.
Because we were all couples and she was the only one we thought about.
There was lots of contradictory statements, everybody wanting to distance themselves. At no point did I see any remorse.
In Redding, California, detectives are searching for two men in connection with the brutal murder of 20-year-old Laura Sinner. Both Lori Smith and Amy Stevens have confessed that their boyfriends, Eric Rubio and Paul Smith Jr., were involved. On April 18th, detectives track the men down.
Lori advised us that she received calls from Paul Smith, who was in custody. We checked the arrest log and determined that, in fact, Paul Smith and Eric Rubio were both currently in custody on a car theft arrest.
What they were doing were going out. They were trying to steal vehicles, and that's what eventually put Paul Smith and Eric into jail, was they got caught with a stolen Jeep.
With the information we had already received talking to the girls, we decided Paul was probably the most responsible about everything that took place, so we felt it'd be better to talk to Rubio first.
We've been talking to several people, and I understand that something might have happened out at the campsite.
And what campsite might this be?
So that's what I'd like you to share with me.
And why what does this pertain to?
I think you have a real good idea about what this pertains to.
And why is that?
You were there at the campsite.
And who says this?
Well, Lori, Amy. Okay, so what we need to do is for you to be honest with us and share with us what happened. I think once you do that, you'll feel better with yourself.
Faced with possible jail time, Eric finally decides to come clean.
We asked him what he could describe took place out at the campsite. He was reasonably candid.
Eric described their campsite as not a really happy place. There was a lot of drug taking and drinking going on and flirting going on, and the tension was rising in the camp.
According to Eric, the source of both couples' tension was Laura Sinner.
Okay.
Eric said that due to the fact that Laura was an outsider, she was really getting on everybody's nerves.
Rubio described to us that Amy initially assaulted Laura, punched her in the face, knocked her against a tree. Two of them fell to the ground, and they were wrestling on the ground. Laura started to get advantage on Amy.
Lori jumped into it because it was believed that Laura Sinner was winning. So they all fight.
Amy went over, retrieved this 2-pound can of chili beans, and then came over and struck Laura in the back of the head 2 times.
Unlike Lori's statement that Paul was the initial aggressor, Eric claims that the 2 girls were the first ones who used the can of chili to beat Laura Sinner.
Lori then stepped in, took the can from her because Amy wasn't strong enough to really do any damage. And then Lori struck her multiple times in the head to the point where Laura finally collapsed on the ground and they stopped.
Okay, what happened to Laura? She was laying there on the road, crying. Was she bleeding? Well, she was bleeding when she got up towards the tent, and I saw her head. What did you say? Just like a gash in her head.
According to Rubio, the two girls helped Laura up and walked down to the creek, which is about 20 yards away from the campsite. They started rinsing off Laura's head in the water, and it was at that point that they could see that the skull was crushed.
When the girls returned to the campsite, they left Laura to rest against a tree. Eric claims that's when Paul produced a razor blade.
Tied her up and then asked her, out of the blue, from nowhere, asked her, cut your wrist, they want me to do it. Okay, and what did Laura say? She said, I'll do it. Okay. What happened then? And then she did it.
She didn't want to do it. She made some cuts into her wrists that weren't very deep, which angered Paul.
That's when the real torture started.
At that point, Paul took the razor blade from her, made the cuts more deeply. Laura was still crying out, "Why are you doing this?" She wasn't dying.
And tells her she's got to drink the thing because he doesn't want her to feel any more pain. But she drinks practically the entire bottle.
She wasn't passing away fast enough for him, so Lori proceeded to get out and hit her with the dip floor. But I guess PJ, she wasn't hitting her hard enough, so he took it away from her and told her to get in the tent, and he did it.
Eric and Amy were inside the tent, trying not to hear the sound of Laura's murder just happening just feet away from them outside of the tent. Finally, they heard a snap. That was her neck being broken.
This poor girl was in agony, extreme pain, and unbelievable fear for a very long period of time. It's hard to comprehend. It just leaves you with an empty feeling.
He came to the tent, and we all sat there for a minute. He said, "Man, come help me bury her." And I was like, "No, man, that." And then he said, "Man, if you don't help me bury her, man, I'm gonna kill you too." So he got up and I helped him bury her. Are you fearful of Paul? Yeah. Why? Because he's a lot bigger than me, and not only because of that, because he's capable of killing one person, capable of doing what he did.
Unlike Amy and Lori's statements, Eric's account implicates Lori in the bludgeoning of Laura Sinner.
There was lots of contradictory statements, everybody wanting to distance themselves.
But all three accounts say the same man delivered the fatal blows. Now, detectives turn their attention to the alleged killer, Paul Smith Jr.
It was finally time for the police to talk to Paul Smith. So he told the police, just kind of offhandedly, "Yeah, I'll take the blame for this."
Police have interviewed 3 suspects for the brutal murder of 20-year-old Laura Sinner at a remote campsite in Northern California. Amy Stevens, Lori Smith, and Eric Rubio all say that 20-year-old Paul Smith Jr. is the real killer. As detectives listen, Paul corroborates Eric's account that the fight had started between the 3 girls and ended with Paul.
In his mind, Laura was not going to live. Her skull was crushed, and that, in fact, she would eventually die, hitting her in the neck several times. And then at some point, he described that he did hear a snap.
Paul told police that he gave each one of his friends an assignment to help him clean up the crime scene.
Paul was the type who it appeared to me, needed an entourage of people to look up to him, think he was their, he was their protector. He was the bad man, not afraid of anything.
He was a quasi kind of a cult leader type person, his personality. He liked to control people through fear.
That's why he surrounds himself with young people, people that he could intimidate. Amy was in foster care, ran away from foster care. Obviously, Lori Smith had a dysfunctional childhood. Eric Rubio had a dysfunctional childhood. Had no one he could really count on.
He threatened everyone around him once they were close to him. This guy was absolutely the worst of the worst.
But ultimately, all of them were involved in it. And at no point did I see any remorse on the two girls.
It's like that pack of dogs. If you have one dog that's a little bit more aggressive, then next thing you know, everybody's attacking.
Less than 3 weeks after Laura's death, Paul Smith, Lori Smith, Amy Stevens, and Eric Rubio are all indicted for her murder.
In my 30 years of law enforcement, I don't recall ever arresting multiple couples involved with a murder.
On July 10th, 1999, Lori Smith pleads guilty to murder. 11 days later, her now-fiancé Eric Rubio does the same.
Eric Rubio and Lori Smith made a deal with the district attorney's office to testify against Paul Smith, and that's where they did get a reduced sentence.
They were sentenced then to 15 years to life with the possibility of parole. Amy, being a juvenile, she went to juvenile court, but she was sentenced to the maximum for juvenile, which would mean she would be in custody until she was 25.
In 2002, 4 years after Laura's murder, Paul Smith Jr. finally goes on trial. On the stand, he maintains his original attack Laura's sinner.
Paul Smith testified that he had only put Laura Sinner out of her misery because he felt she was going to die anyways from the injuries. That was his defense, that he had done her a favor.
The jury obviously didn't buy into that theory, and Paul Smith was eventually convicted on the charges that were brought against him.
He was sentenced to death row.
I think justice was served for Paul Jr. I don't think justice was served in regards to Amy and Lori. Is it enough for Laura Sinner's family? Wouldn't be enough for me.
There's nothing I can say to any one of them. We've lost our sister, and it hurts 20-some years later, like it was yesterday. Laura deserved better.
Laura really trusted people and saw the good in people, and they took advantage of Laura's goodwill and good nature.
Here was an innocent girl that got caught up with the wrong type of people, that it ultimately cost her her life. And that's the saddest thing there is.
I love you, Laura. I miss you, and see you soon.
When a young socialite goes missing, her family vows to bring her home.
Somebody who's from an affluent, well-known, well-respected family doesn't just disappear.
She had the
so-called perfect life. When she went missing, that was unusual.
The search for answers will lead investigators to uncover a disturbing scam by a master manipulator.
You understand that you're being charged with obstruction of justice and forgery?
Yes, sir.
And turn the case of a missing person into a hunt for a killer.
She had no moral compass. There was no such thing as true or false to her.
He was going to do whatever he could do to help protect her.
The coldness is beyond my understanding.
This is one of the rare cases I've ever seen. You've got the state using their two key witnesses. One of them is honestly one of the craziest people I've ever seen in my life.
Why would you murder your best friend for love?
Some people in the world are evil.
Charleston, South Carolina is a prominent port city known for its charm and southern hospitality.
Charleston life is very laid back, very welcoming. Sit on your front porch with your neighbor or stranger and have a glass of iced tea.
Life in Charleston is one of a slow pace. There's a rich culture and heritage here in Charleston, a lot of history.
And Catherine Waring, known as Kate, friends and family, was a true daughter of Charleston.
Kate, her family, they were multi-generational Charlestonians. She was like 8th or 9th generation here in Charleston. Kate had a very good family. Her dad was an attorney. She grew up downtown Charleston. She and her family, her father and her grandfather and great-grandfather has been champions for the underdogs. Even though she lived in the high society along the Battery, they were very humbled and down-to-earth people. Kate was extremely smart, caring, compassionate. She was college educated. She was a phenomenal writer. She had things published in the papers and so forth. She loved to travel. She spoke multiple languages. Went to Alaska with her father. To be in one place, she would leave, and she would take trips all the time.
In 2009, Kate returned to school, and her parents supported her as she made plans for her future.
Kate re-enrolled in college to study Russian. She loved Russia. She just came back from a trip from Russia.
But life for the 28-year-old jet-setter would take a strange and unsettling turn in the summer of 2009. On June 15th, police in Charleston receive a concerning phone call from Kate Waring's parents.
In the summer, the Waring family would live in their summer home or their beach home over on the Isle of Palms, and Kate would occupy the house there on the Battery. She would be independent, could take care of herself, but she would contact her family and her parents on an everyday basis to let them know she's doing well.
The Warings tell police that the last time they'd spoken to Kate was the afternoon of Friday, June 12th, when she called to check in.
It was a normal conversation with her parents. They said there was nothing out of the ordinary. She'd planned to go to the gym, as she pretty much does every day, stop by the pharmacy to pick up a prescription, and she mentioned she had dinner plans with her friend Ethan Mack.
Kate and Ethan were extremely close friends. This was no different than any other night that they would have together, in that they would a lot of times go out for dinner and drinks, socialize.
According to Kate's parents, nothing seemed amiss when they spoke to their daughter. When she hadn't called in 2 days, however, her parents began to worry.
Her father drove into Charleston, where Kate was staying. Kate wasn't in the house, but the lights were on, and he thought maybe that meant she was coming back home.
The Warings knew Kate didn't go out of town because there were just too many things that were still at the house of her personal belongings. There was medication that was still in her room, unused. Her credit cards were not being used. And she relied on her parents for monetary needs, So once all the communication and lines of communication had been cut and stopped, then the Warings knew that Kate had to have been missing.
After taking the missing persons report, Charleston police begin reaching out to Kate's friends, hoping to track her down. They start with her best friend, Ethan Mack.
Police confirmed that Ethan lived on Johns Island with his mother.
Friends, he would always talk about her. They were always really close.
They pretty much were two amigos that hung out together. They shared everything in their lives on a friendship level.
Police learn, like Kate, 30-year-old Ethan was a Charleston native, but he grew up far from the Battery.
We grew up on Johns Island. Back then, it was quiet. It was nice and peaceful and country, if that describes it. It wasn't no city life.
Despite their different upbringings, when Kate met Ethan as a young adult, she was drawn to his strong values and caring nature.
Kate really loved Ethan, and Ethan loved Kate. They were like brothers and sisters.
Kate was the godparent of Ethan's nephew. She loved the Mack family. She would do anything for them. It's like they adopted her and she adopted them.
Ethan tells detectives that he had last seen Kate on the evening of June 12th, when he and his fiancée, Heather Angelica Camp, met Kate for dinner.
Heather was a pediatric surgeon up at MUSC, the Medical University of South Carolina.
On June 12th, they were all celebrating because Heather had just found out she was pregnant.
Ethan Mack picked up Kate from her house along with Heather Camp, and then they drove over to the Wasabi's restaurant. Said that he had dropped Kate Waring back home after 11 p.m.
Upon learning that Kate is missing, Ethan tells police he's worried for his friend.
Where is Kate from there? Was it a situation where she decided to leave her alone and fall off the grid? Or was it a situation where something nefarious happened to her?
Coming up, police track down their first lead when they uncover skeletons in Kate's closet.
There had been some previous romantic relationship. His wife had recently found out she was very unhappy, and she had what a lot of people described as a fiery temperament.
And a disturbing revelation will shine a spotlight on someone close to the missing woman.
She was essentially a con artist.
Police in Charleston, South Carolina are searching for 28-year-old Kate Waring after her parents reported her missing in June 2009. After learning wealth, police begin reconstructing her movements earlier in the day.
That particular day of Kate's disappearance, Kate had took the Black Cat Cab Company to the gym. And at some point in time, the taxi cab brought Kate to the CVS pharmacy where she picked up her prescription.
We saw her on video at the CVS pharmacy downtown.
She gets the prescription. She comes out of the pharmacy. She has no contact with anybody else.
When police reach out to Kate's gym, the manager confirms that Kate had been there. But he informs detectives that Kate had been involved in a troubling altercation.
Witnesses told them on the day that Kate disappeared, they said she was on the Stairmaster when a woman approaches her and starts yelling.
There was a confrontation in regards to her believing that Kate was having an affair with her husband.
Detectives learn the woman is married to a gym employee and MMA instructor named Howard Gatch.
There had been some previous romantic relationship. His wife had recently found out. Needless to say, she was very unhappy, and she had what people described as a fiery temperament. She had some words for Kate. Stay away from Howard. I'm his wife.
and she left.
Police quickly track down Howard Gatch's wife and ask her to come to the station for an interview.
She came in freely to talk to police. She was questioned at length. She did admit that she was in the middle of a contentious divorce, and she saw Kate as a distraction to that process. She did admit that they had a confrontation at the gym, but by all means, she had absolutely nothing to do with her disappearance.
She said, I had nothing to do with any of this. Don't bother me.
She provided information about who she was with, her friends she was with, where she was, and those on Japan. So Ms. Gatch was eliminated as a suspect in doing anything to have harmed Kate.
When police ask Mrs. Gatch about her husband, they're surprised to learn that he'd recently left the country, the day before Kate was reported missing.
He ended up going on a cruise to the Bahamas.
Detectives' attempts to contact Howard go straight to voicemail, which only adds fuel to their growing suspicions. A week later, detectives finally get a call back.
Asked me if I'd be willing to come in, talk to them. I said, yep, I'll be there immediately. From a police perspective, it doesn't take a rocket science to figure out this does not look good for you, Howard. But my trip had been planned for 6 months.
When police sit down with Howard for a formal interview, they press him about his relationship with Kate. He doesn't deny the affair, but he claims he and his wife were already separated when he began dating Kate a month earlier.
Kate and I first met at a gym. I worked out and she came in. And we just sort of hit it off and started training, and we just became best friends from there on out. I cared deeply for Kate. I loved Kate.
Howard tells police he spoke to Kate several times on June 12th.
Kate and I were together that afternoon. We saw each other at the gym, and we talked at 10 p.m. She was like, yeah, I'm riding around with Heather and Ethan.
According to Howard, he received one last message from Kate's phone late that same night.
I got a weird text around midnight. She sent me a text and said, I'm going to Greenville to pick up some lovely. I'm like, what is lovely and why are you going to Greenville? That next morning I woke up and I looked at my phone and she hadn't texted me back. So I was busy because I was getting ready to leave to go out of the country. And then the following morning I got a call from Mr. Waring, Kate's dad. And he asked me, he said, have you seen or talked to Kate? And I said, no, Mr. Waring. When I got that call from him, I knew something was wrong because I knew for a fact that Kate admired and adored her dad, and she spoke with him daily. One of the things that really struck me is like, my God, of not knowing what happened to someone, and I'm only her boyfriend. What is her father and her mother and her brothers going through? Unimaginable.
Investigators find it suspicious that Howard would leave town knowing his girlfriend was missing. But Howard is adamant that he does not know where Kate is now.
He asked me if I'd be willing to take a polygraph. I said, absolutely.
He passed the polygraph test, and his alibi checked out for the most part by police, and Howard seemed genuinely concerned about where Kate was.
He had an alibi about where he was, so he was eliminated as a suspect.
As police continue talking to Kate's friends, they learn...
I received a text message from Kate's phone saying that she was going out of town for a while, some business she had to handle. And I thought it was strange because she never contacted me, letting me know when she was going out of town or why like that. It just didn't seem like her words. I texted her back and I got no response.
Kate's friends knew that she would just not up and leave without any explanation. Her family also knew she would just not up and leave. The more days that went by, police were certainly concerned that the more difficult it might be to bring her home safely.
It's been a week reported her missing in Charleston, South Carolina, and local police are no closer to finding the 28-year-old socialite. Without any solid evidence that Kate's been harmed, police must consider that she may have left town without telling anyone.
There was no indication she was in danger. There was no indication she was going to harm herself. With adult and missing persons, if there's no indication of foul play or they're in danger, nothing really happens.
Weeks pass with no word from Kate Waring, and the case to find her grows cold. Her parents become increasingly afraid and frustrated.
Once the family members were frustrated with the police's mode of operation, Andy Savage was put on notice.
Andy Savage is one of, if not the best criminal defense attorney in the Charleston area.
I was a very good investigator and hard-nosed police officer on the City of Charleston Police Department. And once we met, I started working for Andy. We formed a pretty good team.
They had worked on other important cases in the past, and they were considered so good they were called unofficially the A-Team.
When Kate's family reaches out to the team, Andy Savage is quick to offer his assistance.
Andy made contact with me and said, let's put our heads together and figure out how we can help this family resolve the issue of their child being missing.
Private investigators Bill Capps and James Randolph begin building their own case outside the police investigation. They quickly come to the same conclusion as Kate's family.
Kate would not have left town and leave all of her medications, cut off communication with her cell phones, not use her credit card, not contact her parents.
When private investigators obtain Kate's cell phone records, however, they're able to track her movements out of Charleston on the night of June 12th.
She had been downtown all evening because all the activity using her phone had been using towers downtown. She went out to dinner down in the market area. About the time that they left the restaurant, shortly thereafter, her signal changed.
She used a cell phone sometime after 11 p.m. and the records from the towers of the cell phone showed her phone transmitting from a James Island area.
The investigative team begins canvassing the island, hoping that someone may have seen Kate Waring. Within days, they get a promising tip from a local landlord.
The owner of the property said, hey, this guy told the police that he's living in his mama's house from John's Island. He's not. He's renting a little house right behind my house here on James Island.
One of our investigative team members was able to come up with the information that Ethan Mack was living on James Island.
The private investigators know that Ethan had told police that he lived on John's Island, more than 10 miles away.
They knew that Kate's phone had last pinged on James Island. And now they're learning that Ethan lived on James Island with his fiancée, Heather Camp. So why would Ethan hide this information in the wake of Kate's disappearance?
While investigators begin surveilling Ethan and Heather, they dig deeper into the couple's life. They learn Kate Waring had introduced them after Kate befriended Heather in May 2009.
Heather Camp had claimed that she had some sort of medical degree, that she was a doctor, and she could take care of sick people. Kate Waring offered to get her a job here. She offered her home. She offered her friendship.
Ethan was the best friend that Kate had in the world. And now she meets this new person, Heather. And so Kate's thinking, well, listen, I've got my two best friends. Let me introduce them to each other because maybe they'll hit it off. Maybe they'll be good for each other. Ethan needs somebody. Heather needs somebody. Ethan and Heather hit it off immediately once Kate introduced the two of them. They were inseparable. It was love at first sight.
But the private investigators quickly discover that Heather isn't the person she had claimed to be.
A lengthy rap sheet, including being charged with 3 counts of armed robbery in 2000.
By 2006, she was arrested for forging her grandmother's name on a check. Forgery was a running theme with pretty much everybody that she came into contact with.
Heather was essentially a con artist.
The private investigators know that Ethan had told police that he lived on John's Island, more than 10 miles away.
Heather would portray herself as either a doctor or a nurse. That was a ruse she had used several times.
Heather could convince most people of pretty much anything she wanted to.
Investigators decide to focus on Kate Waring's financial records. That's when Kate's father tells them about a suspicious transaction that had occurred 3 days after Kate went missing.
On June 15th, someone tried to cash a check for $4,500 signed by Kate Waring and dated June 12th. They only failed because Kate had less than $200 in her bank account.
You have some very smart and observant tellers who know the Waring family, know that the transaction that was being made was out of character for Kate's checkbook. So you have the teller who observed that that particular check was not written by Kate Waring.
Once we became aware of this, I contacted an acquaintance of mine who was in charge of security for the South Island Federal Credit Union. And I said, listen, could you check your James Island branch on Folly Road and see if you have any video of anybody trying to cash this forged check? And I gave him the time and date, and he sat in his office and looking at his system. He says, hey, I can send you a couple of screenshots right now. And there was Ethan Mack on camera, standing there trying to cash that $4,500 forged check.
When you see someone on camera cashing a check, a forged check, of a woman who just went missing, he looks very obviously fully guilty.
Coming up, as investigators zero in on their suspects, an unexpected affair comes into focus.
She is straightening up her clothes, and only two of them in there.
She goes from town to town, destroying things. She creates this fantasy world.
He got caught up, he got manipulated, and it destroyed his life.
Charleston home, a team of private investigators have found evidence that Kate's best friend, Ethan Mack, and his fiancée, Heather Camp, had attempted to cash a forged check 3 days after her disappearance.
In order for the handwriting expert to determine that the check was not written by Kate Waring, we need exemplar writings from Ethan Mack, Heather Camp, to figure out whether or not they were actually the ones that had signed the check that Mack was trying to cash.
In order to keep their suspects in the dark, the private investigators decide to contact Ethan and Heather's landlord to see if he can obtain a handwriting sample. They learn that the couple is several months behind on their rent.
Their rent was in serious arrears, so their landlord was in the process of evicting them. We would lose sight of them if they were evicted. We wouldn't have a way of knowing where they was, and then they could scatter.
We concocted a plan for the landlord to have them handwrite out a document using both of their handwritings and agreeing, to give them some more time to pay on the rent.
The plan worked. Ethan and Heather both signed individual promissory notes that had their signatures on them and gave those to their landlord.
And he turned it over to us, which we asked him to do. So we had all the exemplars we needed for the handwriting expert.
When the note is forensically examined, the expert confirms a match.
Looked at it immediately, said, yep, no question.
That handwriting was done by Heather Camp.
As investigators continue to surveil Ethan and Heather, they catch a surprise break.
There were 2 houses in total behind the landlord's house on James Island where they were living. A gentleman named Terry Williams was living there. He was, I guess, an old friend, an acquaintance perhaps, of Ethan's.
While Ethan is at work one day, they spot Heather sneaking over into their neighbor's apartment. So, investigators decide to focus their attention on Terry.
The next day, we knocked on Terry's door. Terry came to the door.
We started talking to Terry and said, hey, listen, man, you live close to these folks. They come and go in your spot all the time. We know you have a good idea of what happened. While we're talking to Terry Williams, the door to the bedroom opened up and come flying out is Heather Camp, yelling and screaming.
She's straight romantically involved with Terry Williams.
That's when Heather makes a telling admission.
She makes a call to Ethan Mack, say, hey, Andy Savage's investigators are here trying to get Terry to roll on us. And when she said, roll on us, in our mind, that was a confession of guilt. We knew for Terry to roll on you, you had to have done something for Terry to roll.
Sensing the private investigators are closing in, Heather Camp makes an unexpected move.
She actually called the Charleston Police Department soon after and told the detective in charge of the case she wanted to talk to him.
On August 17th, 10 weeks after Kate Waring vanished, Heather Camp meets with Charleston police. She begins her statement by admitting that she and Ethan had been stealing from Kate for several weeks.
Kate was aware that her and Ethan had been stealing checks out of her checkbook.
She and Ethan knew that Kate had found out about all the forged checks they were attempting to cash from her account, and that Heather had taken out a credit card in Kate's name. Kate told them she would not press charges, but that they must return the money.
Mac felt pressured because Kate was putting her parents on notice that there's some monies here being taken without my permission. That infuriated Mac.
According to Heather, on the night of June 12th, Ethan had invited Kate to dinner so he could confront her.
Once they completed their meal and left the downtown area, they returned to the home that Ethan was sharing with Heather. This, again, was something that would be pretty normal to occur.
She claimed that once in Ethan's apartment, they were drinking. There was an argument, and Ethan attacked Kate and hit her in the head with a wine bottle. He then filled up the bathtub, took Kate to the bathtub, and drowned her.
Heather said that she didn't try and stop it because she was afraid that the same thing would happen to her if she did not cooperate with Ethan while he was killing Kate.
Police press Heather about the location of Kate's body, but she claims she doesn't know where Ethan left the body. Still, police place Heather under arrest for forgery and obstruction of justice and take Ethan Mack into custody.
Okay. He's not been charged with murder. You want to put that on me, no, Jay? Brother Slim? Not necessarily.
He wouldn't talk without an attorney. He only admitted to forging a check, but he claimed he never knew what happened to Kate Waring.
Without a body, prosecutors are unable to charge Heather and Ethan with murder. Looking for a break, the private investigation team pay Heather a jailhouse visit and get a surprise opportunity that convinces Heather to talk.
It was an open bay area. They happened to bring Ethan out at the same time to be interviewed by law enforcement.
We immediately tell Heather Camp, hey, those investigators from the police department in Max ruling on you. He's telling the cops all about you over there.
Ethan's giving you up, I think was our term. Telling him that you did it all and it was all on you. She could see Ethan over there, and she's trying to get his attention, so I'm standing in between the two of them so he can't see her.
We planted the seed that, hey, Mac's rolling on you now. He's got the cops in there, and he's telling everything he knows. So at that point in time, Heather said, hey, I know where Kate's body is. I was there when Ethan dumped her body.
Heather Camp stated that Ethan and Heather together took Kate's body and went out to an island neighboring James Island called Guatemala Island.
We went back again to interview her, and this time I had used Google Earth. I blew the map of that area in much better detail. She was able to indicate to us where we could find Kate. We went out the next morning after notifying one of the detectives at the police department.
Guatemala's a pretty remote island. A lot of property with not as many homes on it. Heather Camp had vividly recalled when Kate's body was placed, it was close to the water as they were scouring the area. The team saw some skeletal remains. Immediately, we put the Charleston County Police Department on notice. We immediately backed out of the area. This is an actual crime scene that doesn't belong to us any longer. We were positive that those remains was that of Kate Waring.
On October 10th, 2009, nearly 4 months believe they have just found her remains on neighboring Guatemala Island.
Charleston police took control of the crime scene. Other than the skeletal remains, there wasn't much evidence to be found, and the state of decay was so extreme, the coroner couldn't determine the cause of death.
Once the coroner officially confirms the remains belong to Kate Waring, both Ethan Mack and Heather Camp are charged with her murder, prompting Heather to cut a deal.
She had accepted a reduced sentence as long as she fully and honestly cooperated.
Heather changed her story so many times. She had different scenarios on why somebody was after Kate. She claimed that she had family in Puerto Rico that was going to get Kate. She claimed that there's some drug dealer that was after Kate for something. She had no barometer for truth. There was no such thing as true or false to her. It was just whatever she is going to say to take her to the next step.
On October 5th, 2010, nearly a year and a half after Kate's murder, Ethan Mack goes on trial. Ethan's defense team doesn't deny Ethan was present when Kate died. Instead, they claim Heather was the killer.
The perspective that Ethan Mack laid out at trial was one that he was a facilitator, but he didn't actually do what Heather Camp alleged that he did. He played a role in getting Kate there to the house, but then said it was Heather Camp that did the bludgeoning with the bottle, and that he went in another room and covered his ears.
Let's look at motive. Who's got motive in this case? Heather's a person that creates her own worlds. She creates places where she's important. She goes from town to town. She's like a cancer, to be honest. She goes from town to town, destroying things. But what she does originally, she creates this fantasy world.
Ethan's attorney claims that, like Kate, Ethan was victimized by Heather Camp.
Ethan Mack never had a girlfriend. He never had a one-on-one relationship with someone that he loved or loved him. Heather Camp had him smitten.
He fell for Heather Camp, hook, line, and sinker.
Heather convinced Ethan that she was carrying his baby. And so he believed that, his child was coming. She told him that she eventually lost the baby in jail. But there was never any.
Blowing that Ethan, who was described by friends as very reliable, dependable, a good-mannered guy, would betray his best friend Kate. And it really goes to show just how powerful Heather's manipulation over Ethan was.
When Heather Camp takes the stand for the prosecution, Ethan's defense team uses her testimony to their benefit.
David Ayler crossed Heather Camp on the stand for a day and a half in court, and it was basically a clown show.
I caught her lying on the stand more times than I could count. A lot of witnesses are flawed, but she was probably one of the worst I've ever seen.
Again, Ms. Camp, I'm going to ask you about some statements, and I would like you to tell me whether or not you made those statements.
I don't recall saying any, but I mean, it's possible I said any, but I don't recall.
Could it be that you told so many lies you couldn't remember what they all were?
No,
Well, then why couldn't you recall what you'd said?
because it's been a while to...
It'd been a while. Since October to January was a while?
Yeah, for me it is.
The only part that had any credibility whatsoever was that she knew the location of Kate's body.
In their closing statements, the defense's message to the jury is clear.
Heather must have been involved, but you cannot trust what she's saying about Ethan.
After 3 days of testimony, the case goes to the jury. After nearly 14 hours of deliberation, the jury announces their verdict.
We, the jury, by unanimous consent, find the defendant guilty of obstruction of justice. We, the jury, by unanimous consent, find the defendant guilty of forgery.
Ethan was found guilty of forgery and obstruction of justice, but the jury deadlocked on the murder charge.
The trial was hung, so essentially it's considered a mistrial because the jury has to be unanimous.
The two jurors who voted not guilty told us that they voted that way because they saw Heather Camp, they saw how deceptive she was.
Prosecutors announce plans to try Ethan again, but they never get the chance.
His mother went to talk to him, and she told him basically, as I understand it, I didn't raise you like this. You need to do the right thing. And he did.
On April 1st, 2011, nearly 2 years after the death of his best friend, Kate Waring, Ethan Mack accepts a plea bargain.
Guilt, but he is saying that he believes he would be found guilty. Ethan did express remorse and apologize directly to the family of the victim at the time of his plea. He was sentenced to 25 years.
Heather Camp, however, is denied any bargain. She is sentenced to 39 years in prison.
She had made a deal for leniency for her cooperation, and then she continued to lie to them about pretty much everything. So she lost her plea deal. In my opinion, had Kate not met Heather Camp, she might still be with us today. 6 weeks from the time they met, Kate was deceased. 6 weeks. And she'd known Ethan for years.
Ethan was Kate's friend. Ethan was supposed to be the one to protect her, not hurt her. It is greed. Greed makes people change, and it made Ethan change. He killed his friend for it.
If I could talk to Ethan and say one thing, why? Why would you murder your best friend for love?
Kate really cared for him, and he got caught up, he got manipulated, and it destroyed his life, Kate's life, Kate's family's life, and his family's life.